Welcome to the lazyfluency podcast, where we have casual conversations switching between English and Japanese, so you can learn from and with us along the way. I'm Joey.
And I'm Ayami.
And the topic of the day is Tatemae. But before we get into that, make sure to like, subscribe, and or follow us on whatever platform you are listening on to stay up to date with our newest episodes. With that out of the way, Tatemae. So
Yay.
we've kind of covered a similar topic to this before, which was joge kanke, which is kind of like the junior-senior relationships. But it's come up in conversation multiple times, or when I've been talking to some other friends of mine recently about whether tatemae is a good or bad thing, and the distinction between tatemae versus being polite, and also the differences between tatemae or in the US and Japan. But first, do you want to explain what tatemae is in your best understanding of it?
まあ、建前っていうのは、相手を傷つけないように話を合わせる。から、嘘ではないんだよ。わかる？嘘はつかないんだけど。
So you're saying it's not a lie.
そうそう。だからなんていうの？ちょっと違う方面について話すみたいな感じかな。例えば、本当は、ちょっと体調悪いんだけど、まあ大丈夫だよとか。それは嘘か。でもなんて言うんだろう。ちょっと待ってね。ちょっと待って。例えば、なんかお願いをされて、なんて言うんだろう。本当は嫌でもさ、検討しときますとか言えばさ、まあちょっと可能性はあるっちゃあるよみたいな感じを。
But your true feelings are you're not going to do it and there's no intention of doing it, right?
まあ、そっかね。あと、まあよく言われるのはさ、よく多分、日本人を、友達で持つ海外の人とかで、よく日本人ってさ、今度ご飯行こうよとか多いじゃん。あれはもうなんか挨拶みたいな感じで、本当にご飯めちゃめちゃ行きたい、今度もまた遊びたいってわけではなく、なんていうの、ちょっと何も言わないのはちょっともう、まあ、礼儀としてあれだから、じゃあ今度、ご飯でも行こうね。またね、みたいな感じで、場を和らげるっていうか、そんな感じかな。
Okay, so we can run with, it seems like you are running into the contradictions that I already believe exists with your definition, but for your benefit of the doubt, I will, let's say that katamae does not involve lying. It involves presenting the truth in a way as to not hurt the person you are talking to.
そうね。もう基本的にそんな感じかな。
But I think you already went over, I was going to then let's say go through a few examples to examine what it actually looks like, but I guess you kind of already went over that. And this is kind of where, to me personally, okay, here's a good question, I guess. How would you define being polite? Or do you see being polite different from tatemae, or are they the same thing?
being polite と建前ね。まあ、似てる。まあ、ほぼ、同じっていうか、被ってるとこは多いと思うよ。ベン図ってわかるかな？円と円で、二つの円があって、重なってるところは、やっぱり結構大きいかなとは思う。
Yeah, Venn diagram.
かな？そうそうそう。で、まあ。
Or the overlapping circles.
そう。まあ、本音って実際、本音と建前ってよくまあ、有名な言葉なんだけど、本音っていうのは実際に、なんていうの？思ってること？だから例えばさ、ジョイがさ、めちゃめちゃなんかダッサい T シャツ着ててさ、本当は心の中では、何この T シャツダサすぎなんだけどとか思ってても、いいね。 初めて見たとか。初めて見たってさ、嘘ではないじゃん。初めて見たから。わかる？
Yeah, well, this is kind of where. So I personally think that there's a distinction between a clear distinction between being polite and tatemae,
う
at
ん。
least in reality. Maybe there's the ideal of tatemae, and the ideal of tatemae is that you are conveying your thoughts without being rude to the other person.
うん。
But in my experience, and my opinion, politeness is when you are being truthful but kind.
うん。
Tatemae is when you are basically just placating the other person. So doing something that you think they will like. And it doesn't actually have to do anything with necessarily with your intentions. So in your examples that you were given, almost all of the examples involved almost a direct lie. Where, hey, do you want to
ああ。
hang out? Yeah, let's do something in the future. But you actually had no intent of hanging out. But to me, the polite way to say that, not tatemae, would be, honestly, nothing personal, but I don't feel like hanging out like this week or whenever you're talking about hanging out. To me,
う
that would
ん。
be polite. Tatemae, in that sense, to me, it's kind of separate from politeness. It's less about. I guess there's an aspect of politeness that involves not hurting other people's feelings, but in my sense, politeness is more about not being unnecessarily rude. So, or I guess another way to phrase
あ
it is being as productive as possible and not adding unnecessary negative emotion into a conversation.
じゃあもしさ、まあ、ジョイが、まあ、ちょっと本当に嫌いな人がいたとする。で、私、あなたが嫌いだから、もう、遊び行かないっていう。
I mean, it depends what the situation is. Yeah, obviously, if I really don't like somebody, I've told plenty of people I don't like them to their face. But
すごい
I mean,
ね。
but in those times, if I really don't like somebody, I'm probably not going to be polite about it either. Politeness is normally used, I think, in the context of respect or when you need to for social lubricant to like do something if you're part of a team together or
う
like
ん。
yeah, I mean it's a pretty good example. You're part of like an organization and there's no option for you guys to not work together.
うん。
Then I think that's where politeness comes into play. But I feel like I said again, tatemae is different because tatemae
うん。
always cares more about what the listener wants to hear or the perception of what the
う
listener wants
ん。
to hear more so than what you want to say. In my
う
opinion,
ん。
politeness does not actually affect the message that you are conveying. It
う
just
ん。
repackages it
う
to
ん。
its most productive version.
なんか今、まあ、一緒に働いてるなら、まあ、ちょっとポライトネスは必要だよねって言ったじゃん。
Well, that is well depends on what your goals are. If your goals are to continue working together and be productive, I would think that being polite is probably helpful if you hate the person you're talking to.
うん。で、なんか、日本人が本音を使う理由っていうのが、社会で、うまく良好な人間関係を維持するためっていうのが、まあ、結構な理由で、これ関係してるかわかんないんだけど、日本人って結構、日本人であるっていう愛国心が多分強いと思うんだよね。なんでかっていうとさ、オリンピックとかでさ、全然、なんか、知らないね、人でもさ、日本人だから応援するとか、最近の話題だったら大坂なおみとかさ、まあ見た目は今日本人っぽくないじゃん。けど、日本人って分かった瞬間、英語喋ってるし。そうそう。分
Yeah,
かっ
I mean
た
she definitely
瞬間
does. She
ね。
definitely
あ、
looks Asian. I definitely think she clearly has Asian in her. So,
そう。
but I
でも
just don't
見
think
た
she
目はちょっ
looks
と、
a hundred.
見た目もそう
well, she's mixed, but she definitely looks Asian. If you
あ
look,
あ、
if
そう
you
か。
compare her to a like black person who's not Asian or mixed at all, I think it's pretty
ああ、まあま
obvious
あ。
that her
まあ
facial
ね、まあ
features.
ね。うん。そう、なん
But
か、
yeah, I was actually watching. Oh, I wish I should actually note down because I tend to reference other videos I've seen without explicitly naming the creators, mostly because I forget. I think that it's something like, oh man, I'm gonna get it wrong. Jap something Shota or something. But I was watching. He did a video on budo, like the Japanese arts or like the like notion of what's it called, being like an ideal Japanese person and the values passed through in Budo.
うん。
And he talked about how during the Edo Jidai, or the, what do you call that period, Edo period,
江戸時
um,
代うん。
yeah, there was like a 250 plus years of peace. But during the same time, there was almost no innovation, like no economic, what's it called? Economic growth. And I found that, and you talked about how um, during part of this reason is because people stuck, or there's a very strong instillment of the values of Budo,
うん。
which inside Budo, it basically some key tenets are everything. Basically, you are not more important than the peace and stability of your group,
う
and
ん。
because of that, you should do everything in your power to abide by your group and sacrifice yourself for the stability of the group. Um, and that, I think, makes sense as to how Tatemae, and how I, like, in the way I see it, where you are trying to preserve the group, you don't actually care about whatever like you want to express as an individual.
うん。なんかちょっとよくわかんなかったけど。
Yeah,
なんだ、ちょっとポイントで言うと、
it's basically similar to the, you know how, well, a very common thing I've had when I've talked to Japanese people is anytime you express feelings about a little bit of xenophobia, which is like not racism, but let's say a tendency to not like things that aren't similar or be averse to them. They'll say, well, Japan was an island nation, so we used to live in small villages,
うん。
and we had to, do you know what I'm talking about? When
ゼ
people
ノ
talk
フォ
about
ビア。
like
ゼノフォビアがよくわかんない。
xenophobia is just a aversion or fear of different people,
あ、OK、OK。
basically.
うん。
Yeah. And so there's a tendency for, like I said, like if you ever experience that or mention it, I've had multiple times Japanese people say, well, you know, Japan was actually, it's an island nation, so we had to get along inside these small towns, or else we couldn't work together. So because of that, we really value the community,
うん。
and the peace of the town over everything else. So that
う
means pretty
ん。
close to Budo ethics as well.
うん。
But yeah, I don't know. I think that directly ties into Tatemae, in
そう
that,
ね。
in my opinion, Tatemae is not about expressing your truth politely. It's about expressing whatever will make the listener the least upset.
うん。まあ、まあ、基本的にはそうよね。なんて言うんだろう。争いを、避ける。揉め事をね、避ける。っていうのがね、まあ、日本
At
の、
least something I find interesting is like if conveying the truth was important, then there would definitely be a way to convey very like terrible news through tatemae, right? For example, like let's say you have to tell somebody you hate them, but I can't realistically see a situation where you would ever actually let somebody know really what you're thinking. Most of the time, it's kind of ambiguous. It'd be like, I'm trying to think of a very good concrete example, but
う
like
ん。
when you were saying that you don't want to hang out with somebody, you don't tell
う
them you don't
ん。
want to hang out. In fact, you
う
tell them
ん。
you want to hang out and then you ghost them. They never actually understood your intent. It's kind of ambiguous. They can
うん。
guess, but to me, that ambiguity makes it very obvious that Tatemae's goal is not necessarily to convey meaning. It's
あ
about
じゃあ待っ
just
て、
not hurting.
うん。ジョイだったらどうするの？
Oh, well, I'm like I said, I'm more of a all about politeness, but in my opinion, it is most productive for an individual
う
to
ん。
actually convey what they are thinking. Um, but in a nice way, maybe.
え
But I'm saying in tatemae, it's in my opinion, it doesn't actually have to do anything with conveying what you are thinking. It just has to do about the listener. Um,
どうだね。でも、よく日本人はさ、優しいとかさ、言われるじゃん。温和な性格
yeah,
とかさ。ね。それって多分建前があるからっていうのも一理あるよね。
yeah. That was actually covered by the video I watched as well. How like people have the perception of people being nice, but it's not.
う
And I'm not
ん。
saying people aren't nice, but it's less that they're nice and more that uh, not wanting to cause conflicts comes from like the sense of not wanting to cause trouble,
う
because if you
ん。
cause trouble then you'll stick out, and if you stick out then you'll be ostracized,
う
which means to be
ん。
kicked out. And so it's more of like a form of self-protection than it is a form of being nice.
よく日本人よくさ、よく、イエスかノーかのなんか二極端に分かれる質問とかさ、真ん中選ぶよね。まあまあ、まあまあか
Yeah,
な、みたいな。
I
そ
thought
れ
that
も
was
さ、多分
hilarious
はっきり言わ
actually.
ない、そう、はっきり言わないっ
Oh,
てい
go
うのも
ahead.
さ、ごめんごめん。そう。ね、はっきり
Okay,
言
go
わ
ahead.
ない
Yeah.
のは、建前っていうのも関係してるよね。そ
Yeah, I mean, at least from my experience.
う。
I
ね。
mean, I'm trying to think if there's like, I guess, I don't know. In my head, I find it very difficult to find an actual place and need for tatemae compared to polite honesty, which I feel like is the other end of, because I don't know. Do you think that like tatemae is like what is tatemae best at doing?
なんか、仕
Like
事
what
と
are you
か
trying
で、
to achieve?
仕事でさ、仕事で契約を成立させるとかさ、なんかお客さんを立ててお客さんに、買ってもらうとかさ、そういう場面ではまあいいと思うよ。
I mean, I don't think so I guess what I'm trying to say is I feel like if there's a conflict of interest, tatemae can never actually help you get towards a resolution. It can only help you maintain the status quo.
うん。
So like if for example, let's say I mean if you're selling something, you're always going to be aligned interest with the customer, right? Like you're never going to if you're trying to sell them the product and they want to buy your product, you have no problem.
うん。
But if you have a conflict between your boss and
う
your
ん。
like a worker and everybody's stuck in infinite tatemae mode, I think your best case scenario is nothing happens.
まあね、確かにね。うん。
Which
う
makes sense
ん。
though in terms of like maintaining peace,
う
where
ん。
like progress isn't necessarily your goal. Your goal is to just maintain.
難しいな。でもさ、本音を言いすぎるとさ、まあこれも結構考えてたことなんだけど、本音イコールいじめにもなりうるじゃん。
Well, in my view, honesty does not have to be related to bullying or anything at all. It can
あ
be, but
だっ
like I
て、
said, there's
う
always
ん。
a polite way to
う
to
ん。
honestly convey your thoughts.
だってさ、これ、どうなんだろうね。例えばね、私が、まあ、誰かにあなたブサイクよって言われて、で、本当にその人はブサイクと思ってて、それは本音じゃん。でも私からしたらさ、まあ悲しむでしょ？本音言われてるけど悲しむから、 そこってじゃあどうすればいいの？
Well,
建前
I
使うしかな
think
いじゃん。
in this situation, well, not really. You have to, I guess, consider what is the purpose of language. So I guess one way to think about the, in my opinion, communication is
う
probably
ん。
um, a very good first guess as to what the purpose of language is. But then the real question after that is, well, what are we communicating for? And there's probably some goal that exists that we're communicating for. And so my question, I guess, in any situation is, what is the goal of this conversation? Um, so I
う
don't, if
ん。
the person who thinks that you're ugly, their goal is to make you angry or like to upset you, then they will achieve what they want to do by being honest.
うん。
And if their goal is to befriend you, then like I said, it's not, they don't have to, there's no reason to talk about your looks in the first place. So it's not, they're not lying to you or telling the truth. It's just kind of irrelevant to the conversation. But for example, if you say, am I like, does this dress look good on me?
うん。
I do think a friend should be able to say, in my opinion, I don't think like it's not my type or it's not my like specific style,
う
but
ん。
like that's not up to me and I think you can wear what you want or whatever. So that would be a nice way to go about it.
ああ、はいはいはい。ああ、ああね、なるほどね。まあ、私それはイメージしやすい。だってそれはさ、実際に洋服着てる人が意見を求めてるからね。その、相手が。
Yeah.
で、まあ、意見が欲しいっていうのがゴールじゃん。
Yeah, in that
そうそ
situation.
うそう。まあね、時と場合によるに尽きるな、これは。なんて言えばいいんだろうね。うん。ね、で
Yeah.
も、
Well, if
やっ
you
ぱり、
oh, go ahead.
ごめん。初めて会う人に本音言うのもなかなか気が引けるよね。
I mean, and
なんか、初めましての人にさ、ちょっと、まあ、ニコニコしながら、まあ、今日は楽しくなくてもさ、今日は楽しかったです。ありがとうございましたとかさ、言わない？
I mean, I definitely think that is a tendency. I have, I tend to be like, my personality tends to be disagreeable.
う
So
ん。
I don't have a problem of saying, like, when somebody says, like, how's your day? I'll go, you know, it's actually pretty awful, but like, it's, like, nice to meet you. You know what I'm saying? Like,
うーん。ああ。違う。じゃあその人とさ、遊びに行って、実際楽しくなかったらどうやって別れるの？バイバイの時に。
well, is he asking me how it was? Like, there's no, unless I'm being
そうそう
directly
そうそう
asked
そう。
about how the,
そう。どうでしたかって聞かれて、
I mean, it's too, I guess all these situations are very context sensitive, but if like we went to a sports game and I didn't enjoy it, I'd be like, you know, I expected a little more from this game. Like it wasn't the best, like, I don't know, experience in general, but um, like nothing personal against you or whatever. Something like that, probably.
じゃあ、なんていうの？あなたに、まあ関係しないんだけど、まあそこで、まあちょっと和らげてるよね。
Well,
あな
I
たの
don't
せいじゃ
know.
ないんだけ
I don't, like
ど、
I said, this is a hypothetical. If it had to do with them, then I'm definitely gonna tell them. Like if they were calling me names the entire time, I'm going to say, you know what, I did not appreciate you directly attacking me
うん
throughout the game. But I'm assuming
あ
that the reason I wasn't happy because the game was bad.
うん。なるへそね。はい。まあね。
And
うん、
yeah,
徐々に
if you
ね。う
guys have
ん。
any thoughts about tatemae or honne, because I don't want to be that American who's like, you always need, we're being censored. Tatemae is being censored. You got freedom. So that's not my goal here. So I don't know. I want to hear more perspectives on the actual purpose of tatemae, and if you think there's a difference between that and being polite, or if they're the same thing, or what the goal of tatemae is, or the definition.
ね、回答待ってます。Hello, hello, we're back.
戻りました。
Yay! So, in this section, we're going to talk about daily kind of stuff and yeah. So, but
大事なお
anyways,
知らせがある。
yes. Did you hear the news that Japan is finally opening?
パチパチパチパチマジで
Yay,
嬉しいんだ
yay,
けど。
yay, yay. We've been waiting for this for a long time.
まあ公式的な発表じゃなかったでしょう。今の
Oh, yeah,
発
yeah.
表
So
っ
I
て。
just, yeah, I read the newspaper website and
う
what
ん
does it say?
うん、最近のニュース、これはいつ出たの ?2022 年5月6日。
Yeah.
外国人観光客、6月にも入国再開。まず団体客で検討、ごめんね。団体客で政府検討という記事があったんだけど、つまり、6月から上層に観光客とつながってる観光客団体、その観光の団体とつながってる観光客が日本に行けることができる。行くことができる。ついに。
Yeah, that's good news, right?
うん。でも団体はどういう意味かちょっとわかんないんだけど。
Yeah, I think I'm not sure, but I guess so travel company like HIS in Japan, like HIS とか日本旅行 something like that.
HIS は何？
It's a company.
International Highway Systems?
I don't know. But well, yeah, so that kind of like tourism company have like tours. So through those tour kind of groups, they people can come to Japan, I guess, at first.
うん。で、
And
記事
then
に書いてあるのは1万から始まる。それから2万に増える。その
I don't know
国に入られること。
how big the number is, like 10,000? Is it a lot?
10,000. どういうこと？人？
Yeah, because like
めっちゃ
yeah.
少ないじゃない。
Oh, really?
わかんないんだけど。でもめっちゃなんていうそんなに大きくはないと思う。その数は。一案として現在の1日1万人から現在1日の数だけ。入国者数の上限引き上げも検討する。一案として現在の1日1万人から当面2万人に枠を広げる方法などが浮上する。人数を限るなど一定の条件をつけながら欧米やアジアから観光客を受け。なるほど。それで結構なんかどうだろうね。わかんない。これは大量かどうか。
Yeah, because I guess Tokyo Disneyland has much more people than this.
それで10日で10万人で100日で100万人ってこと？
Yeah. Yeah, thinking about that. That's yeah.
でも団体とつながってる人はどのぐらいかわかんない。
Yeah, I don't know.
プラスこれはもちろん公式的な発表じゃなかったから噂だけ。
Yeah. Yeah, not
かもしれない。
sure. Yeah. But I guess, yeah, it's gonna, yeah. So Japan is gonna open really soon if the corona situation gets better. And right now, the
最
current
近のどうぞ。
sorry. So the current situation in Tokyo, coronavirus positives It's a little bit getting larger. I don't know. The number is
うん。
getting increasing a little bit because we had this golden week. So like it was the first time in I guess 3 years to have golden week without any regulations.
今まではゴールデン、regulations なしの
Yeah. So we could go anywhere without like so we had mambo or 緊急事態宣言 something like that. So yeah, this year it was the first time. Yeah.
完全にない。マスクをつけなく
I
て
no
も
no no
大
no. I
丈
mean
夫。
we should wear masks all the time and like
でもその
sanitizer hands.
制
Yeah.
限なかったってこと？そのマスクつけなくちゃいけないルールないってこと？
No. We have to. That's
ああ、
like
そう
I
い
mean
う
like
こと。
I mean
制
like
限されてるけど、一応ゴールデンウィークがある。
yeah we could go anywhere. Yeah.
ああ、どこでもマスクをつけてるならいける。
Yes, exactly. So, yeah, I guess many people went to at least how do I say? Traveling inside Japan. And some people,
う
I
ん。
guess, went to other countries because America is opening up its border, right? And other countries
もうすで
too.
にやったんだけど。
Yeah.
結構前。
Yeah, so like I heard some people went to Hawaii to spend Golden Week. Yeah,
う
so
ん。
yeah, I guess
ゴールデンウィー
that
クは、これはバカな質問かもしれないんだけど、一週間だけ
yep. And actually in that 1 week we had 2 days of normal days.
それ3日
So
間だけ
like
はゴー
not
ルデンウィーク
I mean, wait a sec. 5 days? So it
い
was
やいやい
not
やいや
like
いや。土曜日と日曜日はアウトでしょ？それはいつも休みだから。
oh then yeah
で
3.
しょ？
Well
ゴ
yeah
ールデンウィークにならないじゃん、それ。
for us it's a big deal, you know.
でも
We
連
work
続
too much. Yeah.
月曜日から水曜日までがゴールデンウィークだったってこと？
Well, like I mean, how do I say like it was not successive.
う
Like
ん。
so Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Kind of like that. I forgot, but yeah.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. ああ、
Yeah,
最
like in
低
yeah.
じゃない？なんか旅行に行けなくない？
Well, yeah, but it depends on the job you have. Like some people had full 1 week, and my school, I had classes, but it was online, so I didn't take the classes.
あ、それで
So,
本当
but
に
yeah,
5
I
日間の
had.
ゴールデンウィーク楽しんだ。
Yeah.
あ、よかった。
Yeah.
あ、授業の問題、それ。ゴールデンウィー
Yeah.
クはウィークであるべき。
Oh, yes. Yeah, I should change its name. It's not a week.
あ、ゴールデンウィークの由来ってちょっと気になってるんだけど、知ってる？なぜ、なんかこのゴールデンウィークの、なんか中国で1ヶ月間ぐらいの、まあ、ゴールデンウィークみたいなことあるでしょ？
I don't
あ
know.
ったっけ？
But let me see the Yurai for Golden Week.
Origin.
Yes. Wait a sec. Oh. ゴールデンウィーク、ちょっとここは日本語で。ゴールデンウィークは、5月の連休を表す言葉として日本で定着しています。その理由は、由来は2つあります。一つは日本映画界の造語であるという説。もう一つはラジオのゴールデンタイムから来たという説です。 で、
うん
この映画から来たっていう一つ目の説は、ゴールデンウィークに当たる期間に、1951年に上映された映画、自由学校っていう映画が、あの、より、ちょっと待ってね。多くの人に映画を見てもらおうとしたことで、作られた造語。で、もう一つの、ゴールデンタイム、ごめんね。
うん。
ゴールデンタイムっていう
ゴールデンタイムは
説は、
意味なんだけど。
大型連休の期間が最も、ラジオの、聴取率が高い時間だったから、ゴールデン、黄金週間って言われてたんだけど、インパクトにかけることから、ゴールデンウィークというようになった説です。だからまあ、カタカナにすれば、いやいや、if we if we make names into katakana, then we think that we have like bigger impressions, I guess.
で、結局政府はいつそのゴールデンウィークを、法律と関わってんの？それともみんなが勝手にやってるの？ゴールデンウィーク。
I guess like culture does. I guess the government doesn't necessarily, I don't know, has any relation with this Golden
It's not a
Week.
national holiday?
I guess. I don't know.
うん、面白い。
Yeah. Whoa, I didn't know that.
でも
ほうほう。
とりあえず日本が、まあ、これは嘘じゃなかったら開くってことはすごい。
Yeah.
ついに本当に待ってた。
Yes.
2
You
年間以
guys.
上。
You guys. Yeah. I guess many people are listening this podcast from other countries, right? You guys can come to Japan really soon.
まあ団体とつながってるなら。
Oh yeah. But yeah, at least そうね。Yeah.
うん、一応いいことだけど。うん。
Yes. Hope everything goes well.
And we're back with the final section. I don't know why I'm saying
ただいま。
this time around. Finally, I'm actually very excited for this section. We finally got our first question from a
やっ
listener.
たーはい、リスナーさんから初めての質問をいただきました。皆さんもどしどし何でもいいので、送ってくださいまし。
Where should I email exactly? Lazyfluency at gmail.com.
lazyfluency at gmail.com です。
Or honestly, through any of our social media. You can just drop it on Instagram, Twitter. We technically have a Facebook. We will be doing more actual posts
そう
there.
だね。はい。
Yeah. YouTube comments. We'll take any of them. If you drop a comment, language related and or otherwise, at lazyfluency at gmail.com. We might respond to it in the next episode. And today we are actually responding to one. Yay.
Yes. はい。初めての質問は何ですか？
Well, first I want to, I guess, explain our. So, because this is the first question or the first listener question, I guess I want to establish some, what's the word? How we'll approach answering questions. And so, lots of times if you ask a lot of questions, instead of directly answering all of them, we can summarize the question into the core message, as well as if you want to remain. If you just provide us your first name or anything, we'll say it on the podcast unless you say otherwise. Yeah, so that's kind of how we're going to go about answering questions for now. And our first question is from Surabi. I hope that's how you pronounce it. Yeah, thanks. Big ups to Surabi. Much appreciated.
Yay.
And fundamentally, he had many questions that we boiled down to how is work culture in Japan today, like modern times. And do you want to start answering this?
まあこれは結構、ワークカルチャーね、何この勤務時間のことかな。
My understanding of the question is, it seems like he's interested in, or I don't know if it's he or she, the listener is interested, or the person who asked the question is interested in like kind of the more standard like sarariman or that kind of like what is the current work culture in the average Japanese company, like not like a foreign one or mixed company, but like how much overwork is there, like what
はい
kind of
はい
stuff do you
はい
need to
はい。
wear, how much do you need to use polite
はいはい。
Japanese, things like that.
うん。
Oh, for
はいはい。
context, for
う
context,
ん。
I have not worked at a Japanese company, although I have. So that's why I've done research on stuff related to the field, so I have some information from there, but I don't have personal experience. So there's that.
うん。で、私もまだ、ね、社会で仕事を、なんていうのね、会社員とかじゃないからわからないけど、まあ調べましたと。で、ちゃんと厚生労働省が、まあ、出してる、なんかそういう調査みたいな、統計
Yeah.
調査っていうのがあって、はい。で、実際、労働時間は減少傾向に推移してる。びっくりじゃない？なんでかっていう
Wait.
と、これちょっとからく
Oh,
り
go
がある
ahead.
んだよ。
Sorry. Yeah.
あ、
Go
そう
ahead.
そうそう。これはね、決して労働時間が減ったわけじゃなくて、パートタイム、労働者が、増えてきて、そのパートタイム労働者の時間も、減ってきてるという。だから全体的に平均すると、総合して減少傾向になっているって感じっていうのを書いてある。
Okay. What does it say in terms of how much actually like what that like how much is actually being worked in a given week? For example, if you're working 100 hours a week and it dropped to 90, that's still kind of 大変.
うん、そうね。で、今の日本の、まあ、2016年のデータなんだけど、日本で49時間以上、週に49時間以上働いてるのが 21%。で、40から48時間が 37% だから、もう40時間以上働いてるのがまあ 50% 以上占めてると。
And what is the standard work amount supposed to be? Is it 40 hours like the US, or do
どう
you
いうこ
know what
と？
like the work is that does that mean there are 9 hours of overtime on average, or what does that mean? Like is 40 hours the normal work week?
うん。だと思う。なんか不思議なんだけ
Hmm.
どさ、アメリカも、
And you
アメリカ、
yeah, go ahead.
アメリカも結構40から48が 50% で、49時間以上が 16% だって。意外と働いてんじゃん、アメリ
Yeah,
カ。
there are multiple things I guess when which is this is tracked working hours, right? And in
うん。
Japan, it's very common to not report your overtime work.
ああ、
So
そっかそっか。ああ、確かにね。そ
so
れも
I
あり得
would
るかも
not
し
be
れな
very
い。
surprised if the real statistics are very different from this.
あーやば、見て。あ、
But
見
I
て
mean,
とか言ってわかんない
oh
か。
sorry,
あ、イギリ
you
ス、フランス、ドイツ、
oh
ヨー
Europe
ロッパの、
oh go ahead.
国々は、すごいね。30% とかに、20、フランスとかで働いてなさすぎでしょ。20% ぐらいしか、40時間以上働いてない人が多い。いいね。
I
フラン
mean,
スに住もう。
I think that should be the if the normal work week is 40 hours, I don't understand. I mean, this is a whole separate conversation, so maybe we should be more focused on like all the aspects of work. But maybe later we'll do a full episode on work culture, like a deep dive, because I think that'd be potentially pretty interesting. But
う
do you have
ん。
any like experience with? Because I know you've obviously worked in Japan, not through like as like a salary man or like through full time
う
work
ん。
capacity, but in
う
terms of
ん。
like how much polite Japanese and like what you need to wear and like
う
office
ん。
restrictions. You were talking about
あ
how
あ。
you for med school have to students have to dye their hair, right?
はいはい。まあ私は、そう、まあ、 医学部に通ってましてですね、結構実習とかあるんだよ。あるんですよ。だよとか言っちゃった。まあで、その実習とかでは絶対に髪の毛は染めちゃいけない。で、ピアスとかもうダメ。落ちない。その派手なやつはさすがにさ、しちゃいけないってわかるけどさ、ほんなちっちゃいやつでも取らないといけないんだよ。で、そうだ。で、なんていうの地毛に、とにかく地毛の色に揃えろと。
And so, okay. So what you're saying that if you have natural hair, it's fine, or
そう。なんか、染めて、なんていうの普段実習がないときは、全然染めててもいいね。金髪でも、銀髪でも赤髪でもいいんだけど、実習の時は染め直して黒にしないといけない。
okay. What
そ
about like the doctor? Do you have to use like very polite Japanese when you're doing your jishu or your what would you call
う。
them? Your rounds, I think, or
うん
there's a
ど
word
ち
for that.
ら
I
か
can't
と
remember.
いうとね、あんまりカチカチの敬語は逆にね、親近感がなくなっちゃうから、ちょっと崩した感じが患者さんにとってはいいっていうのは、教えられたし、実際にお医者さん、会診とかしてるのについていったことあるんだけど、結構タメ口で話してる人多かった。その
What
お医者
about
さん。
between workers?
びえっとね、
So not patient to doctor, but like doctor doctor or doctor to
あ
like clinician or like receptionist or something.
一緒のチームで働いてるんだったら、ま先輩後輩とか、まあ、たまにタメ語とか感じで、違うチームで、例えばナースステーションに寄るときとかは、多分、敬語だったかなわかんない。その場所にもよるし、私あんま覚えてないからだけど、まあ、そんな感じかな。まあで
So
も、
your feeling is that it really depends on like what job you're doing then, sort of.
そうね。まあでも、敬語ガチガチではない。なんか、よくさ、まあこれも、その医学部のでよく言われるんだけどさ、チーム医療っていうやつがあって、昔の医者って俺偉いんだぞみたいな風習があったから、あの、なかなか逆らえない感じだったの。他の看護師とか、他のね、その医療関
Yeah.
係者。そうそう。だからそれを今、チームで働くことが大事なんだよっていうのを、力入れてて、で、まあ、そこで、あれなんじゃない敬語も、だんだんと薄まって、ね、慣れ親しむ感じの雰囲気を作ってるの
What
もあるかも
what
しれな
about
い。
your outfits? Like what you have to wear?
ケイシーっていうなんか白い、まあ、白衣っぽいやつかな。白衣って言えば
Oh,
一番。
obviously if you're a doctor. Oh, never
そ
mind.
うそ
That's
う
an
そう
obvious
そう
one.
そう。
But do you have any idea like for example when you did the like the one-off part-time jobs in Japan, like do you have to wear a
あ
specific attire?
そうね、はいはい。私、工場で、単発バイトやった時は、まあ、多分それは衛生面から考えて、なんか着せられてよ、その作業着みたいな。で、そこで、あった。その残業の話なんだけど、紙書く、なんかボスっぽい人から、残業しますかって言われたから、するわけないじゃんと思って、しませんって言ったんだけど、やっぱ残業するっていうオプションがあるんだよ。
I always find it so interesting that normally in the US it's not phrased are you doing overwork or do you want to overwork, it's like it's I guess it's referred to as overtime, but that's only kind of in like retroactively. So most of the time it'd be like we need some extra it's really busy time right now.
う
um
ん。
would you be able to put any hours into into the week or Saturday or something, or some
う
Friday, more
ん。
on Friday or something like that? But it would
ああ。
it seems weird to
オー
ask,
バータイムかな。
are you
う
doing
ん。
overtime?
う
Are you
ん。
going to, well, an overtime at least sounds less in my head less
う
scary as
ん。
zangyo.
ねえ。あと、なんか面白い、なんていうの、 統計っていうのがあって、労働時間が長い人は、職場の雰囲気として、ごめん、なんていうの？ちょっとごめんなさい。ちょっと言い換えます。労働時間が長い人ほど、上司が残業してるときに、頑張ってる人とか責任感が強いっていうポジティブなイメージを持っているっていう傾向が強いんだって。例えば、上司はまだ残ってるのに、後輩が先に帰れないっていうのは、後輩が先に帰っちゃうと、なんていうんだろうね。頑張ってない人みたいな捉え方さ
Yeah.
れがちだから、みんな上司が帰るまで、残業っていうか、ね、するっていうのがまあ結構
Yeah.
あり得る。
This seems, yeah, we probably should. I definitely think we're going to do at some point a full dive in this because it seems like a lot of this information seems to be
ね、ちょっと
industry
結構
specific.
深いから。
And well, and also how it's changed because I'm really the thing you mentioned about part-time job is really interesting.
うん。
How things are shifting to part-time. So technically speaking, hours are being reduced, but that's only because they're less needed. And it's I'm assuming part-time is meaning they're not employees. They're probably like contractual
うん。
work. So we might do a full dive into this with more research at
そ
a
うで
later
すね。
date.
はい。うん。
But yeah,
まあ、
appreciate the
とにか
question.
く、はい。
Uh,
質問ありがとうございました。
seriously.
ぜひ皆さんもね、送ってください。
That bell means we've reached the end of today's episode. Thanks for joining us in another lazy conversation towards fluency. If you have any language-related questions and or just looking for general advice, send an email to lazyfluency@gmail.com. We might respond in the next episode. Also, make sure to check out our podcast on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and more. We'd appreciate the support. This has been Joey.
And Ayami.
Signing off. じゃあね。
じゃあね。
Bye-bye.
バイバイ。